Next slide, please. Can we have the next slide, please? Hello, everyone. Welcome to OER Editor Workshop. As part of integrated OER program, my name is Ritima Bhatia. I am a program lead with the Open Library team. I'll be taking care of all the steps of this program. My main role is to support our educators to make use of our wonderful collections of OER. Now I'm going to take a second and invite my co-host Mary to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mary Gu. I'm a programs lead with the Open Library. Welcome to the session.
Thank you, Mary. Let's just start by acknowledging the land we are on. The office of eCampusOntario, which is located in downtown Toronto, are within the traditional territories of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Great Elizabeth, Chippewa, and Ordonez. We acknowledge and thanks the diverse Indigenous people. You can also share your land acknowledgements in the chat section. Now let's just look on the agenda for today. We will be starting with the overview of eCampusOntario program, platform, and services. Then we will be talking about the Open Library OERs. Before we dive into overall scope of integrating OER program itself, we will be talking about virtual learning strategies or a VLS collection. Then we will dive into OER editing process, including the things like how the process will look like and how to submit the updated OER at the end. And after that, we also gonna have the Q&A session in the last of the webinar in case you have any questions. So let's just start about eCampusOntario program and services. At eCampusOntario, we develop programs, services, frameworks, and new support system to address sector-wide challenges. We aim to provide the necessary learner and educator to foster rich, humanized, inclusive, and successful education experience with the realm of virtual learning. So from planning for the possible futures to finding strategic partners, developing talent through launching new programs, eCampusOntario platforms help you to navigate digital transformation in education. Our key programs include virtual learning strategy, micro-credential portal, Ontario Extend, which is a micro-potential program supporting educator. We also have capital in support of Francophone student experiential learning. Along with that, we also have EdTech Sandbox and Experience Design Lab, along with the annual technology and education seminar show. So I invite everyone, if you haven't had the chance to explore some of these wonderful programs, to take some time to explore after this session. Mary, if you could please put the link of our programs and services in the chat section, that would be great. Thank you. So coming to the Open Library, Open Library is a home to over 1,200 OERs. We support access to these OERs through our platform, and we support educators and learners in creation and adoptions of these OERs. So what is an OER? What we can do with the OER? The term open content and open education resource describes any copyrightable work that is either in the public domain or licensed in a manner that provides everyone with free and perpetual permission to engage in the 5R activities, that is retain, revise, remix, reuse, redistribute. This is the most common definition by David Gilley. So let's just talk a little bit about these 5R activities. Starting with the retain, this is really straightforward in the sense that it's your ability to make your own control of a copy of a resource. For instance, if you found an excellent resource that you are able to copy for yourself in your own library, so that means you are retaining that resource. When we talk about the revision, so this is, so if any textbook you found is in the French and now you would like to practice your translation skills, you can translate that item. That means you are revising that item. If we talk about the remix, let's say if there is a section in the open textbook that you found was very useful for explaining a concept that is in another textbook. So you can remix these objects by making a mashup of these two textbook section and make your own item. And also, let's say if there is an excellent mashup that includes multiple open textbook, and now you can reuse it in the multiple contexts. You can also refer this as a recommended resource. Also, you can use in your classroom. Let's say this mashup really made a great impact on your students. Now the educators or your colleagues also interested to use the same resources in their classroom. You can redistribute this item and give it to your faculty members. So these 5R activities are really key in understanding the ways you can engage with the open education resources. You may find it very interesting to know that OER is not just an open textbook. Open education resources can be simulations, can be apps, can be course packages, can be slide decks. And thanks to our virtual learning strategy and the funding that provide quite a lot of wonderful resources. Let's come to the virtual learning strategy now. Virtual learning strategy aim to create collaborative learning driven, high quality and digital by design material for all Ontario learners and educators. The historic investment for the Government of Ontario created over 600 new resources for Ontario educators, which is almost doubled our collection, including new formats, and expanded the subject areas as well. Virtual learning strategy also produced a new license, the Ontario Common License, which is eligible to Ontario educators and learners. As a non-derivative license, they function in the same way as a Creative Commons license, which many people are familiar with the open access world. But there is a very small scope of eligible users. So please note that if all the resources in the open library are marked with a license that is applicable to only that resource, which means if you're still unsure like which license is being applied and what permissions that are allowable, you need to just look at the item in the open library and click on the license to figure out what is allowable. And also there is a wholesome of discussion about the Creative Commons license in our workshop, OER and You. We have a recording on the YouTube. Mary, if you could please put the link in the chat section for that recording. Perfect. Talking about the integrating OER program. So this program is made possible by the second round of funding through our virtual learning strategy. The primary goal of this program is to support and enable Ontario post-secondary educators in discovering and engaging the open library VLS collection. From the feedback in the research, we found that it can take a lot of time to find and evaluate and adapt the OER for their classes. We also found that it could be more support in terms of professional development or administrative support in their work of engaging with the open access materials. So keeping in mind these barriers, the integrating OER program will support OER use through 3 avenues. We'll be figuring out the ways to increase spend on OERs. We are looking at providing direct grant boards in support work spent on looking at the OERs. We are looking at providing our expertise in open library to you. Let's just talk who can get involved and what we can do as a participants in this program. Eligible Ontario educators are invited to apply to participate through 2 different avenues of activities. You can be a OER adopter, meaning that you can participate to receive support on evaluating, curating, adapting OER to your teaching. And also as a peer reviewers, you will be participating to contribute to the continuous improvement of the OER as a subject matter expert, where you can provide the constructive feedback based on the set of rubric. Coming to the editing process, we'll be taking some time in which you can learn about what you can do as a participant and how the stipend process will look like and a lot of things. So let's just talk about the peer review first, because you will be directly linked, the editing process will be directly linked to the peer review. So many of you must be familiar with the peer review in an academic publishing sense, where it's a part of knowledge creation process, often embedded in the publication process itself. So it's a kind of process to prevent errors and to redefine knowledge before it's get disseminated. So this can be a blind or open process based on variety of levels. Whereas, sorry, just give me a moment, please. Whereas in the open context, because of the open access nature, anybody and everybody has a opportunity to create knowledge. And so we can think of it more as peer review as a part of continuous quality improvement process. By having open access, that removes certain economic and social barriers that can come with the traditional publishing. It's a part of sharing your professional opinion and subject matter expertise to assist in the ongoing quality of OER. Also to assist other educators and learners in deciding how to engage with the OER that has been reviewed. So let's have a look at the example of the peer review in the Open Library. Currently we have Writing for Success, First Canadian Edition is the OER. Mary, if you could please share the link so that people can access the same OER and how the peer review look like. So for this item, you can see we also have license link. We also have several reviews. Here's a screenshot how it looks like. So if you click on one of the icon that say full review, you can open up the peer review to understand where does the rating is coming from. You can also see each of the criteria such as comprehensiveness, content accuracy. You will get the chance to see, to read the full comments that are provided for each criteria. We just want to make sure that everybody can get a visual, or I would really encourage folks to have a look on the comments, because this is the really important part of the peer review in an open context. It really gives you a lot of context and additional notes to engage with the peer review themselves. So this review is totally based on the open textbook and the old rubric we were using. But for the editing process, we made some changes in the current rubric, and we're going to talk about this in this workshop. Talking about the OER editor requirements and timelines. So requirements is more like the participant must have their OER published into the Open Library on eCampusOntario Open Library, and this program is reserved for only VLS 1.0 project team. So after this webinar, please feel free to get familiar with the integrating OER program. Mary, if you could please provide the link in the chat section for our webpage. After getting familiar, just apply to participate to become an OER editor by December 9, 2022. And the Open Library team will review all the registration and confirm your selection after that. And upon confirmation, Open Library team will share the rubric and peer review feedback collected during the peer review process. Participants will need to submit their updated OER by February 2023 by using the submission form link. Mary, if you could please put the link of updated OER. eCampusOntario will, after that, distribute the stipends directly to the participants. And talking about the stipends, $550 per project team in recognition of the team additional work time spent on updating the OER. Funding is reserved only for the VLS project team and their VLS OER. Project team must identify one project team author to lead the updates and receive stipend directly. So please feel free to apply as a OER editor by the specific deadlines, and after applying, please submit your updated OER by the program deadline. So let's just dive into the rubric now. Yes, thank you, Mary. So peer review criteria divided into 3 sections: the quality of OER content, the quality of OER experience, finally the overall category with the final comments. So you probably suspect, because we have looked the peer review before, we are looking at the rating of each criteria on a scale of 1 to 5. 1 means this area doesn't meet any characteristics specified in that criteria. And 5 is this OER fully meets the characteristics specified in that criteria. Peer reviewers also comments on the quality of content measures based on comprehensiveness, accuracy, relevancy, clarity, consistency, and organization and diversity inclusion. So let's just have a look at a couple of these criteria. Starting with the relevance, as you know, relevance in which we can see the content is up to date, but not in the way that will make a content obsolete in a short period of time. The content must be presented in a way that necessary updates will be relatively easy and straightforward to implement. So let's just consider an example of science OER. So we might be considering the information is up to date or relative to the field of course. And talking about the other criteria such as clarity, in which we can see the content is understandable to the intended audience and provide adequate context for any technical terminology used. And also we can see the example of linguistic in which all the technical terminologies are well defined in a way that matches the intended audience. One of the things coming out of the VLS collection is that OERs have been marked by the project creators for the intended education level that the OER is appropriate for, and that is a great and excellent area for some feedback as a subject matter experts in both teaching and subject itself. So let's just consider now the next group of measures like quality of OER experience, where we have modularity, interface, multimedia accessibility, response and control, and experiential components. Means the multimedia means the OER is fully functioning, seamlessly integrated with the content and organized to enhance the user experience. When we talk about the multimedia element criteria, we need to make sure OER fully functioning. Is it integrated? Is it organized properly? So let's just consider the example of the Pressbooks. Mainly the Pressbook has H5P modules and it has videos embedded in. So we need to make sure H5P modules are working. So do all the videos are working? If you can download the Pressbooks XML, for those of you who are familiar with the Pressbooks, are you able to import and make use of it without any kind of issues? So talking about the new criteria, response and control, we have added to get the direct response in the form of apps, games, softwares, and extended reality content. So the response and controls means the OER is quickly and accurately responsive to input for OER with XR content. Learner or educator is able to control the movement and manipulate objects in display. So we need to just make sure what ways does it work well, in what ways is it lacking a bit. So that's a crucial feedback we can get from during the peer review process. So we will be, can we have the next slide, please? So we will be having the two situations after you will get the confirmation from us. There will be two situations, either the situation A and situation B. So upon confirmation, first of all, please feel free to share your financial information with us and familiarize yourself with the rubric present on the web page and the guidelines. We will be sharing the guidelines document upon the confirmation. So the two situations will be, we will be sharing the review report of the specific OER you created, and you can make the changes as per the review report, the feedback from the review report. And the situation two, in case the OER have not been reviewed during the peer review process. So in that case, you are most welcome to do the self-reflection of your OER using the rubric, and you are most welcome to engage your colleague or co-worker in that case, and he or she can be play the role of peer reviewer and maybe adopter, and So in both the cases, you just in the end, you just need to provide the version report and the updated OER with to the Open Library. So if you are engaging your colleague to provide the feedback using the rubric, so please note that this colleague may also apply as an adopter or peer reviewer, which also offer additional stipends. And right now we have the room for 10 peer review stipends and 80 adoption reports remaining. So to get eligible for the stipend, your colleague will need to submit both adoption and review reports at the end. So at the end, either you are in the situation A or in situation B. So what we are expecting from you is if you completed your additions under situation A, you just need to share version report and updated OER with us. If you completed your OER edition under situation B, then you need to provide us peer review details along with the peer review report, adopter details along with the adoption report, if applicable, and version report and updated OER. So Mary, if you could please provide the link for everything, peer review application, adoption application, and version report and updated OER in the chat section, that would be great. And if you, Mary, if you could please share the story of the updated OER recently, that would be great.
Thanks for your patience, everyone. I just needed to unmute myself. So like Rima said, we will be providing templates as part of the guideline document that will be sent out with the confirmation emails. As you see on the screen, there are some examples of what that looks like. And of course, our page for submitting updated files is already active. As Rima mentioned, updating OERs is already an existing practice in the open education space. Some of you will probably be familiar. And as part of that, what we would like to do is always engage with the creator about what kind of changes it look like. As part of the integrating OER program specifically, we are adding additional templates and guidelines about how we can do that work, especially since we'll be aiming to engage with many of you. So through the guideline document that will be provided, I'll have all of the details. And some of the things that that can look like is perhaps you're making corrections and reflecting upon what was created in the first round of funding and realize, oh, you know, we didn't end up putting in this section. And it would be really great to put that section in. Or, oh, you know, I think maybe it's time for an updated edition because perhaps your OER focus a lot about a specific type of software that's as a training piece. And the software now has a new edition, and so it's appropriate now to add a new section that makes it substantial enough for a new edition. And in the Open Library, we talk with creators fairly often about this type of thing. So for example, we have one of our very well-used business textbooks. The creator reached out recently to mention that in the next year or so, they will be preparing to make updates. And we had a brief consultation on the amount of updates that would be necessary and therefore what kind of treatment it'll get. Is it, for example, just a version change, as you see in the version history, perhaps minor corrections? Or is there substantial enough for a full edition, in which case it will be added as a new item in the Open Library? So all of the details, as well as how they're guiding questions for thinking through what kind of edits you'll make based on what kind of feedback you will either be receiving or conducting yourself, will be detailed in the guidelines document. But this workshop is really aimed to give you that overview sense of what that can look like through the Open Library integrating OER program. Now I'm going to turn it back to Rima, who will take you through what's next, and then we'll have time for Q&A as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary, for providing a nice overview how we can update our OER and more about the version history as well. So talking about the resources, if we can, next slide, please. So please feel free to familiarize yourself with the full program guide present on the Integrating OER program webpage and applications to get involved as a peer review or as an adopter or OER editor. We're gonna send you the email to apply as a OER Editor, and you may also find the recordings for the past events, like how the process are going on for the peer reviewers and for the adoptions. And just to keep updated, please feel free to join our Slack channel of educators, and we also have a channel of integrating OER participants. And can we have the next slides, please? Now it's just a time of Q&A session. If you have any questions, please feel free to put in the chat section, or you can unmute yourself and speak up.